Ghost Golf is Fresno's most spectacular family entertainment center. It's frightening how much fun.
Hey, it's New Thought Talk. I'm your host, the Reverend Steve Walling from the Spiritual Awareness Center located in Fresno, California, the heart of the Central Valley, as I say each week, in the heart of California. And I hope that you have taken ownership of this day and declared it to be the gift that God gave to you long before you ever took your first breath. Welcome to the show. Welcome to today. It is a great show, a great day, and I'm glad you're here. So I'm glad I'm here also. So, trying to figure out what it is I want to talk about today, and I'm going to kind of maybe bounce around between a few things, but I thought I'd start with the idea of the power of thought, and that is a section within the textbook, and I'm going to tag that a little bit. I'm going to tag a couple other things also as we talk about the power of thought. You know, Troward had some good things to say about that in the Dory lectures, and we'll probably touch on that a bit. But I'm going to begin with, if you happen to have a copy of Living the Science of Mind, something, let's see, it's on page 252, something that Holmes entitled, Let Us Not Fool Ourselves. And he says, in the science of mind, we do not say everything is all right when it's all wrong. We do not say peace when there is no peace, but rather we try to discover what is wrong and why we do not have peace. We do not say that people are not poor, sick, or unhappy. We ask why these things should be if the original cause of all things is harmonious, perfect, radiant, and happy. And you know, that's a reasonable question to ask. You know, we talk about in Science of Mind and New Thought the power of the divine creative principle, how God has expressed individually, as each and every one of us is an individualized aspect of a greater whole, a greater oneness, a greater unity. And we talk about God as the creative source of all that is, being good, being love, being infinitely abundant, right? And yet we look out into the world and we oftentimes, well, not oftentimes, pretty much every day we see great demonstrations of everything else but, right? Sometimes we look out into our life and we see the same thing there. Oftentimes we make too much of a mistake for ourselves by looking out into the world at large and then defining ourselves by what we see out there. And when we come to New Thought, when we begin to really seek to discover the truth of who we are, and as Jesus said, when we know the truth will set us free. And what does that mean, set us free? Well, what it means is when we know the truth about who and what we are, as being set free, what we are is we are freed from the bondage that we have kept ourselves in through ignorance, through belief in things less than, not only in the life around us, but within ourselves too. And you know, we see it all the time, but I can't help on some level thinking how tragic that is. You know, we have available to us the divine infinite, the divine power on an infinite basis, the divine knowingness on an infinite basis, the divine everywhere presence on the infinite basis. And yet we kind of hold ourselves at bay. We hold ourselves apart from. We see the world and we see ourselves. There's us and the other. And you know, we don't come with an instruction manual, if you will. We don't come with an owner's manual. Our parents didn't have instruction manuals on how to raise us. And one of the things that let's clear the air right from the start today, because we all have our story, right? And some of our stories are really great, and some of our stories can be rather tragic as we define them. But the thing that we need to understand, regardless of what our story is, regardless of how impoverished, I'm going to use that term, those that raised us when we were children, regardless of how impoverished they may have been, everybody does the best they can with the tools that they have. Sometimes people are very broken, and so the tools they use are very broken. And we can, should we choose, hold that as the anchor that we tie ourselves to define the who and what we are in our life. And so what we do is we perpetrate the brokenness. We continue the tragicness, if you will. And the thing about this is that Holmes tells us that which can free us is the very same thing that is currently holding us in bondage. Isn't today the day that you maybe want to strike out on your own? Maybe you want to free yourself from limiting beliefs, from a limiting lifestyle, looking out into the world, seeing what we may define as tragedy out there, but knowing that for us, that we can begin to divest ourselves of that tragedy and begin to live in our own story of love and peace and harmony, relationships, abundance. Living and celebrating each moment, each breath of our life experience and expression in the realization that, one, we're not alone. Two, we can be divinely guided in a way that when we open ourselves up to it, that cannot be beat. We can be divinely guarded when we open ourselves up to that. And we can become the artists and the screenplay writers of our life experience and expression in an incredible way. Now, granted, it's true life does come at us at the speed of life, but how we experience what life brings to us, well, that's a whole nother story. But that's a story that we can be the author of. And so today, as I'm starting out today, and I thought, well, I'd like to talk about the power of thought, because really in so many ways, it is the power of thought that becomes kind of the hinge pin, if you will, of us setting out and utilizing and experiencing and expressing God through us in an ever higher, greater degree of livingness. It's awesome. It's incredible. It's wonderful. It's love expressed. And it's available to each and every one of us. And that's why I believe it's so important. The side effect of this is, and this is just a side note, that when we begin this journey and we begin to do this for ourselves, first thing is we got to understand that this isn't being selfish. This is actually about the most unselfish thing that we can do with our life experience. And so when we make this decision to begin to live in a realization, a self-realization of the divine expressing as life, as our life, and expressing through us into our life experience, that and calling on that not only does our life, our whole life experience change and uplift, if you will, but we really do, on some level, bring all of creation up to a certain extent. Now, you say, well, I'm just one little person in a greater universe. One little person. It's not even important that we put it in those terms, because we're not just one little person. We're one part of a greater infinite wholeness, if you will. And therefore, as one part of that, as we are affected, we affect the all, if you will. And we have an effect on it. It's hard for us to grasp sometimes. It's hard for us to realize that as individuals, as individualized aspect of this great unity, that we can have such an incredible power over the entirety of the unity. But we can. And it's only when we begin to realize that for ourselves, we begin to express it in our life. You know, it's kind of along the lines of what they call the butterfly effect. And if I remember right, and that was presented to a scientific group in the 70s, and I don't remember the name of the professor that brought it, but he was pretty much laughed out of there at the time. But there's been a lot of study done since then. And in fact, this concept of the butterfly effect is an amazing thing in the influence it has. One little flapping of the wings, insignificant in and of itself, changing the trajectory, if you will, of the entire world. And we can do that. We can do that as we choose to do that, as we choose to own it for ourselves. That's how important we are. We are that important. We are so important that the divine principle, that which we call God, gifted us with life so that it may experience life as it expresses as us and through us. Think about it. That's not a little thing. I think that's an awesome thing. But we get caught up in the outside world, in looking at conditions of the outside world and defining our life by the conditions that we see. When in truth, what we need to do is look at first cause, look at the creative source, look within ourselves, and begin to realize the power that's there. And as we realize the power that's there, we all of a sudden realize that conditions are no longer significant insofar as the importance that they play in our life. They are just markers, and we can use those markers as we grow, as we experience greater good, greater peace, greater harmony. We can use those markers as maybe a chapter in a book that we put on the shelf of our mind, our memory, but we move beyond that, and we continue to move beyond that. And the most amazing thing of it all is no matter who we are, or where we are in life, or how old we are, we can start right where we're at. There's nothing that limits us other than our own limitations that we place upon ourselves. So we're going to take our first break. And when we come back, if you happen to have the textbook, I'm going to go to the last part of that chapter that's entitled The Power of Thought. And the section that we're going to start with is something called Understanding. And I'll see you when we come back.
Ghost Golf is Fresno's most spectacular family entertainment center. It's frightening how much fun you'll have on our 18-hole indoor haunted graveyard course. Skeletons welcome you, but watch out. All sorts of creatures may come to life. Ghost Golf is perfect for scary good parties, so book yours today. You'll get free plays at the Mummy Shooting Gallery, arcades, and air hockey. Check out our party and weekday specials online and like us on Facebook. Come play at family-friendly Ghost Golf. Good times will haunt you.
At McDermott Counseling, you will receive the highest level of care and a welcoming, safe space in which to discuss your most personal issues. Our therapists go above and beyond for you. Call 559-280-5756 or visit McDermottCounseling.com to find a caring therapist who best suits your needs. Diane Ainsworth's books of poetry and scriptures are available at CondioPress.com and as ebooks at Amazon.com. Diane hopes the words in her books will convey the unconditional love Jesus has for you. Learn more at God'sInspirationsBlog.wordpress.com and get a copy of Diane's books today.
Hello everyone, my name is Miss G. I offer fun and affordable promotion and advertisement on my talk show. It is called Fresno Vibes. We talk, we play awesome music. I also feature a bunch of different bartenders from different places. I like to have restaurants. I like to have any event, any kind of fun stuff. Contact me at rmgmissg@gmail.com and we will have so much fun and we will promote your business, promote your event right here on my show. So contact me. We'll have fun. Thank you.
In a world where Friday nights have become synonymous with going out to get wasted, consider not doing that and instead save your money and tune in to the Hey Slingshot Show Friday nights at 7 p.m. Or go out anyway and pull out your phone and watch on Facebook or YouTube. You can even watch right now. It won't be live, but there is a significant backlog of shows that you can watch right now. Hey Slingshot, Friday nights at 7 on CentralValleyTalk.com.
Hey, I'm Chris DeVold. Tune in every Friday night on CentralValleyTalk.com when I bring you Sex, Drugs, Chris DeVold, where I'll give you 3 guesses on what we talk about. And I also vow to bring you 1 live local music act a week. So tune in every week because you never know what kind of music you're going to hear right here on CentralValleyTalk.com.
CentralValleyTalk.com.
Welcome back. back to New Thought Talk. I'm your host, Reverend Steve Walling. Today we're talking about the power of thought. Going to the textbook under the chapter section called The Power of Thought. The last part of it is something that Holmes titled Understanding. He says, before we attempt to improve our conditions, before we proceed further on the subject of healing, and healing in this sense is not just healing is like from a health condition, but it can be healing our finances, healing our life experience, healing in any area of our life where we may be experiencing something less than a greater good, a greater abundance, if you will, a greater expression of life. He says it is necessary that we be certain in our own minds that thought is creative, as upon this basis our entire superstructure rests. Since spirit creates by contemplation, a purely mental action, then everything in the manifest world is some effect of its thought. Our own minds are an expression of the divine mind and must be of the same essence. Interesting concept. If you happen to have a copy of the Doré lectures by Judge Tord, under the creative power of thought, I think it's like chapter 6, something like that, he says, one of the great axioms of the new order of ideas, and considering that he wrote this back in the beginning of the 20th century, it was a relatively new order of idea. He says, of which I have spoken, is that our thought process, our thoughts possess creative power. And since the whole superstructure depends on this foundation, it is well to examine it carefully. Now, the starting point is to see that thought, or purely mental action, is the only possible source from which the existing creation could ever have come into manifestation at all. And it is on this account that in the preceding addresses, earlier chapters, he says, I've laid stress on the origin of the cosmos. The divine principle, first cause, that which we call God. Its mode of action, if you will, is thought. And what it thinks becomes. That's a story for another day, but just bear with me on this. He says, it is therefore not necessary to go over this again. We got that. He says, what we need to know is that the divine thought has produced something which itself is capable of thinking. But the question is whether its thinking has the same creative quality of that of the parent mind. In other words, if we look at first cause, source, God, as the creator of all that is, and that's pretty much accepted as so here. And if its singular mode of action is thought, consciousness, and that's pretty much understood here, then all creation is some form of thought, if you will, of the divine mind, which means that we also are an expression of thought within the divine mind, and that our minds is also an expression within the divine mind, and our ability to think. We are, in effect, a microcosm, as they like to say, or a miniature of the great mind. The great mind being the divine mind, universal intelligence, one mind. That mind is God, but that mind is our mind now also. And so we utilize this mind, individualized as ourselves. And as we do that, we utilize it on the same basis, in the same way, if you will. In other words, that as we think, there is a law that responds. And this law responds always. Now, what that means is, for our whole lives, and wherever you're at in your life, it could be a couple years, could be many years, you have been, in effect, creating your life based on external influences, out of ignorance, chaos, beliefs that don't support you in many different ways. And yet, here you are today, and you go, wait a second. If I'm creating my mind, my life experience, if my mind has, my ability to think has this kind of power, this ability, if you will, of thought has the power to be creative, why am I in the mess that I'm in? Well, we're in the mess that we're in because, like I said in the beginning, one, we don't come with an instruction manual or an owner's manual Our spiritual journey is the spiritual journey of self-discovery of the truth of who and what we are. And as we begin to understand and learn more of the truth about ourselves, we begin to see that we are an integral part, if you will, within the whole creation. And I say integral, oftentimes we tend to marginalize ourselves. I mean, we're just one person. There's been millions of people that have come before us. There are millions of people that will come after us. There's millions of people alive today. I mean, come on. Is this really that significant, this life of mine? And the answer to that is yes, it is. You are that significant in your life. How you express life, your life here and now, is that significant. And you were gifted into this life, and you were gifted in potential as part of this life with the potential availability of everything that you could need, want, and desire, if you will, in order to express your life maximally. Now, I say your life because as you express your life maximally, that's not necessarily the same way someone else would express their life maximally. And everything that they would need, want, and desire is there for them in potential also. But the potentials are not the same necessarily for you and someone else. You have the gifts that God created you with, whether they are gifts that you currently utilize or whether they're still in their seed form within you. They're there nonetheless. If you are a young person or an old person, like I said, there's no point in time in your life when you cannot get started. You can start at 10 or you can start, Grandma Moses started like at 85, and there's some authors that started in their late 70s, their 80s, 90s. I mean, it's, creative people can be creative at any time. And when I talk about creative, I'm not necessarily just speaking of musicians and artists, but engineers, people that solve world problems. There's nothing that limits us other than our own thought, our consciousness about ourselves. We need to understand this. So Holmes goes on, he says, we find ourselves in an undesirable condition in the face of all this, and it's merely proof that we have limited ourselves by our very freedom. Shall we not then reverse our thinking and take for our starting point the inherent nature of the mental powers? We start right where we're at. We start with a realization. We start with a change in our focus. We no longer see ourselves as being subject to conditions. Now, maybe we can't grab the big picture all at once, but we can start within ourselves at a level and in a way that we can understand. For some people, that may be just beginning to work on creating a shift in consciousness from being very negative in our outlook to life as to being maybe more accepting, and then moving from that to being more positive in our life experience. It's up to us, but our journey is there. It awaits us. Our destiny awaits us. Our legend, if you will, awaits us. Our legacy awaits us. And these are all words that connotate magnanimous, outrageously courageous, and adventurous things. And in truth, that's available for each and every one of us. Now, also in truth, adventurous and courageous is individually defined. So don't worry about it. How you define it is what works, what is right for you. And it is in alignment with your purpose for being here. Recognizing, one, we have a purpose. Two, we have a guidance and a power. We have a God that a first cause, a source, an infiniteness of power, knowingness, and availability and presence and substance that we can tap into, tune in any time, and begin to put into practice in our life. Now, there's a cost. Everything has a value, and everything has a price. Oftentimes, we don't pay too much attention to the price when we're looking at things and we're determining the value. Well, this also has a price, and the price that we have to pay is a price of dedication, a price of aligning ourselves with the creative source of the universe, a price of accepting goodness into our life, on an ongoing basis, a price of being aware of the way our trend of thinking goes. I mean, these are prices, if you will, that are not beyond our capability of participating in and paying, but they are prices that need to be paid nonetheless. I mean, a lot of people get real excited about New Thought religious science. And they think, well, I can create all this good in my life, and all I have to do is just, affirmative prayer treatment or whatever, and I'm good to go. Well, not exactly, because if we fail to align ourselves with principle will fail to align ourselves with what we say we want to demonstrate in our life. In other words, we can't claim good when we're not in alignment with that which creates good. That's a thought. A lot of people don't want to give up. They don't want to pay the price. A lot of us like to hang on to our pet peeves or whatever. And we'll talk more about that as we go on here. But I want to touch this before we go to our break. He says, we should strive towards a perfect vision, a perfect conception. We should expand our thought until it realizes all good, and then cut right through all that appears to be, and use the almighty power for definite purposes. We should daily feed a deeper union with life, a greater sense of that indwelling God, the God of the seen and of the unseen within us. When we speak into this mind, we have sown a seed of thought in the absolute, and we may rest in peace. We need not make haste, for it is done unto us as we believe, and in that day, they that call upon me, I will answer. But we got to speak the same language, so to speak. And as he says here, we have to strive towards a perfect vision. And a perfect vision is not just a vision of fine detail in what we're seeking to create in our life. A perfect vision is a vision that comes out of a perfect or a greater towards perfect relationship with divine principle. I'll see you when we come back after this break. Got some good stuff to share.
With Organic Pastures Raw Milk, you're getting a product that has been meticulously managed from grass to glass. From our pastures to our dairy, creamery, and distribution, we work hard to produce a product that is safe and clean for you.
Got lactose intolerance or dairy allergies? Discover delicious raw milk and discover dairy the way it's supposed to be. We provide tours and would love to see you. Come visit the cows, watch the milking, the cheese being made, and learn all about raw milk. We're just 20 miles south and west of Fresno, California. Call to schedule a tour at 559-846-9732.
The Saga of Bridget and Amanda by Carol Love Forbes brings to life the struggles of historical women in early America. Find the Saga of Bridget and Amanda on Amazon and Barnes & Noble and order your copy today.
You enter this door with expired tags. Beyond is another dimension, a dimension of regulations, a dimension of long waits. You have reached the registration zone. What looks like an ordinary shop is actually Mitchell Smog, located in the heart of the Tower District, a few minutes from the DMV. Mitchell Smog offers your vehicle a STAR-certified smog inspection. So remember Mitchell Smog when you need to pass through the registration zone.
Christy Majors is your local real estate connection. With a solid, hard-working team, traditional listings, short sales, probate listings, and foreclosures are treated in a personal and caring way and close in a timely fashion. Since 2009, Team Majors has closed more than $75 million worth of homes all over California. Reliable and trustworthy, Christy and her team will go the extra mile for every client, whether selling or buying a home. So give Team Majors a call at 559-464-5606 or visit teammajors.com.
After a tough day at the track, cleaning up can be a time-consuming task. That's why we use Extreme Cleaner, the non-toxic, biodegradable, multi-purpose cleaner and degreaser. Extreme Cleaner cuts through even the toughest of grease and grime. Fast. Great for cleaning tools and work surfaces. Extreme Cleaner. Tough on grime, safe on the environment. Visit extremecleaner.com to find a retailer near you.
When you experience flooding in your home, you need to call Clean Master Emergency Flood Service at 559-213-9430. After soaking in water for only 45 minutes, carpet starts to come apart. Clean Master Emergency Flood Service can help, and not just with carpet repair. They also offer carpet cleaning, upholstery cleaning, carpet installation, and more. Call Clean Master Emergency Flood Service, and they'll be there in 60 minutes. Call 559-213-9430.
CentralValleyTalk.com.
Welcome back to New Thought Talk. I'm your host, Reverend Steve Walling from the Spiritual Awareness Center located in Fresno, California. Going back to Trord, once again, in the Dory Lectures, he says, and we're talking about the power of thought here, he says, hence it follows that if there is to be an expression of thinking power, it can only be by expressing the same thinking power which subsists latent in the originating spirit. In other words, with divine principle. If it were less than this, it would only be some sort of a mechanism and would not be thinking power. So that to be thinking power at all, it must be identical in kind with that of the originating spirit. And it is for this reason that man is said to be created in the image and the likeness of God, the nature of God. And if we realize that it is impossible for it to be otherwise, we shall find a firm foundation from which to draw many important deductions. And what Trord's doing there is he's laying the foundation for the understanding of this incredible and immense power that's available to each and every one of us. But as available as it is, we tend to muck it up because we don't know where we're going until we learn that maybe there's things that we can do about where we're going. Going back to our chapter here, our section in the textbook, Holmes says, under we set our own limitations. He says, do we desire to live in a world people with friends who love us, surrounded by things beautiful and pleasing? There is but one way, and this way is as certain as the sun shines. Daily, we must control all the thought that denies the real, affirm the divine presence within us. Then, as the mist disappears before the sun, so shall adversity melt before the shining radiance of our own exalted thought. But if we're looking out in the world and we're seeing conditions, chaos, all that stuff, right? If that's what we see, if that's what we own in our inner idea of what's going on in the world, guess what we're going to create? Now, that doesn't mean that, as we started today, it doesn't mean we look out the world and say that there's no problems, obviously. I mean, that's not very constructive in any way, shape, or form. However, there is a place where we can go. There is a place where we can interact, where there aren't any problems. And that place is within ourselves. As we seek within ourselves the truth of who we are, there is the peace, there is the calm, and there is the power. And it's from there, this inner light, if you will. I've read, I don't remember where it was, but where I believe it was Trord, talking about growing the Christ within. Or, we all realize, or hopefully we realize that we're all expressions of God, and that God exists within ourselves as an inner expression and an inner urge. But as we begin to walk our spiritual path, as we begin to put our spiritual tools into practice, that divine within us, the Christ within us, in a sense grows within us, and it grows in power and presence, in our ability to understand, to relate to it, and have that understanding relate to us as an expression, as a demonstration of our life experience. So we do that. But we look out and we see conditions. So what do? We quiet our mind. We go within. And as we go within, it's not that we're denying, in a sense, what the physical world is telling us, but what we are doing is creating within ourselves a calmness, a recognition that there is a divine truth divine power, divine love, peace, and harmony that exists as the creative source of the entire universe, and that we can not only relate to it, but it in turn relates back to us at the level of our belief, at the level of our understanding. And if our belief and understanding has been one of limitation because we've chosen to limit ourselves because we believed things about ourselves or about life that are limiting things, then we got to change them. It's done unto us as we believe. How do we change them? Well, we change them by, one, recognizing the possibility that they're there and accepting that as a possibility. Two, seeking within ourselves to express the truth of who we are on multiple levels. We express it in our conscious mind, if you will, as we speak our affirmations, but we express it in a spiritual way too. And this is part of our daily affirmative prayer treatment. It's part of our daily meditative practices. It's a part of our daily affirmations. I mean, all these things combine to form basically our assault, if you will, on old limiting beliefs that have held us in bondage in our life. And the thing is, I can talk to you about them. I can share these with you. You can read them in the books. You can hear other people talk about them. But the thing is, if you don't put them into practice in your life, nothing's going to happen. You know, it's like looking in the window and seeing all the neat stuff on the other side of the window, but never having access to the stuff that's on the other side of the window. And yet, in truth, that window's not there. The window is just a figment of your imagination. And once you begin to come to an understanding that that window's not really there, that all the good that I see, all the good that I seek is available to me. It's available when I begin to understand that in God expressing, there is nothing but perfection. In God expressing, in that perfection, there is only good. There's not God and something else. There's not limitation. There's not lack. These are conditions that we have seen because the world has defined these conditions for us. We've accepted them because our five senses have told us that that's part of reality, but it's not part of truth. And we have to begin to understand that there's a difference between what we call reality and what is truth, what is the absolute and what is the relative. As we start our journey, as we're on our journey, we begin to see things that oftentimes we've accepted as true in the past and not so much anymore. You know, facts are not necessarily true. They're just facts, and facts have fallen away throughout the history of humanity and been replaced with other facts and then other facts. You know, it was a fact at one time that we knew all that there was to know about physics, and then someone discovered quantum physics. It's a fact that the world was flat at some time, and then somebody decided to discover that the world was round, and on and on. Humanity is full of so-called facts. 1980, it was a fact that if someone had a stroke, you put them in bed, you made them as comfortable as possible so that they could live out what was remained of the rest of their life. Today, it's a fact that if you take someone that has a stroke and you get them up and walking and moving around and doing as much as they can as soon as possible, including possibly even the same day of the stroke, that not only can they save some of the things that they would have lost, but they can save their whole life expression and experience because the old facts no longer count. It's a fact about you, too. Fact is that you are an expression of the divine principle. Fact is that you have powers available to you of which you have no idea. Fact is you've been living your life in limitation. These are all facts that we can change, but we have to choose to change them. We have to decide to change them. And in understanding our position of making a choice to decide to change, we have to understand that thoughts are powerful things. Thoughts are very powerful things, and they are things of themselves. So we set our own limitations. We'll go here, and I'm moving back towards the beginning of this section, if you will. And the next one is the power within. Think about this. Through spiritual discernment, Holmes says, we see that we have within us a power which is greater than anything we shall ever contact, a power that can overcome every obstacle in our experience and set us safe, satisfied, and at peace, healed and prosperous in a new light, in a new life. If God be for us, who can be against us? That's quite a statement. If you can begin to grasp the totality of that statement and what it means to you in your life experience, I want you to consider one other thing. Another statement along these lines, and it's, with God, all things are possible. With God, all things are possible. Now, as I share this with people, I ask them a question. I said, one, do you believe that there's a creative source, first cause, God? Do you believe that? And if they say yes, okay, I'm not going to get into theology and dogma. It's not my intention. But if the creator of the universe, creatist, doesn't make any difference. Source, spirit, goddess, doesn't make any difference how you relate to it. If that which has created the universe has the power to create the universe, what is not possible for it? Think about it. There's nothing that you can think of that doesn't come under the heading of created by the divine, whatever that is. If with God all things are possible, if you believe that there is a God, then the next part of that statement is it's a fact. God is all there is. All things are possible. Why is it that we have chosen in ourselves, in our life experience, to limit ourselves in such a way, when if we only knew humanity-wide the truth and the power that's available to us, the whole thing would change, wouldn't it? I mean, wouldn't it be nice if, we could just push a button and everybody was on board with the same thought, the same concept, and we all put it into practice? There's one life. That life is God. That life is love, and we express that love here and now. They say there's enough food in the world to feed everybody. There should be no starving people. There's enough everything in the world and beyond the world, because we're not limited by what we see in the world when we begin to understand that with God, all things are possible. When we stop looking at conditions and limitations that the world shows to us and fall back to, with God, all things are possible, then we don't base our decisions on what we see in the world. We base our decisions based on, with God, all things are possible. Now think about applying that in your own life. You're looking out at your life and you're seeing limitation, you're seeing, chaos, this, that, and the other in your life experience. And you're thinking, how am I going to? What am I going to? So, okay, wait a second. With God, all things are possible. What does that mean for me? Well, what it means is whatever you see out in the world, it doesn't own you. It's not controlling you. It has no power over you other than the power that you give it. So isn't it time to make a decision? Power up, if you will, in your life experience. Think about it. And as you think about it, we're going to take our next break. When we come back, this hour went faster than what I figured. I got a lot to cover. We may spread this out over a week or two. I don't know. But anyway, I'll see you when we come back.
Get your copy of Crouching Mama Hidden Veggies today, packed with recipes of delicious food cooked with hidden vegetables, so you can feel confident that you and your family are eating your veggies.
Contact Sprague Electric for all things electrical, solar installations, battery systems, troubleshooting, repairs, and more. Call 559-760-0712. SpragueElectric.com.
Are you or a member of your family beginning to show early signs of forgetfulness that may be Alzheimer's or dementia? The only way to be sure is through an expensive brain scan. Dr. Parminder Bhatia of the Neuropain Medical Center is helping in a clinical trial for those with memory problems, dementia, or mild Alzheimer's disease. Those accepted into the trial will have all costs paid for, from diagnosis to evaluations and trial medicine. There is no cost for those who are accepted in the trial, and there may even be some compensation for the patient's time and travel. For more information, call 559-437-9700, extension 310, and visit neuropain.com.
CentralValleyTalk.com.
Welcome back to New Thought Talk. I'm your host, the Reverend Steve Walling. Well, I hope you've been enjoying the show today. I'm going to touch a little bit more out of the textbook, Under the Power Within, and then a couple other things I want to hit before we close. Just so far as we depend upon any condition, past, present, or future, we are creating chaos because we are then dealing with the conditions, the effects, and not with the causes. Could we but comprehend the fact that there is a power that makes things directly out of itself by simply becoming the thing it makes, could we but grasp this greatest truth about life and realize that we are dealing with a principle scientifically correct and eternally present, we could accomplish whatever it is possible for us to conceive. In other words, turn away from the conditions. We have a greater source, a greater power, a bigger God that is available to us, each and every one of us, at the level of our belief. So what's the level of our belief? It is what it is for right now, but it doesn't have to remain this way. You know, what we believe today, we didn't believe at one time, and what we believe today, we don't have to believe in the future. We can change, we can grow, we can morph our beliefs, we can evolve our beliefs, if you will. But that's something that we have to seek as part of our spiritual journey to do. Now, something I'm not going to really get into today, but I'm going to spend maybe one or two lessons on it in the near future, is something that Dr. Holmes called race consciousness. Race consciousness is a very interesting but very real concept, if you will. Carl Jung looked out into the universe of humanity, and he called a similar thing. It's not exactly the same as he defined it, but it is the same in effect, and he called it the collective unconscious. Either way, the race conscious or collective unconscious is an influence that, you know, if I said it was available to us, that's really not it. It's not only available, it's like always there. In other words, you can't get away from it. Now, until you know that it's there, until you recognize that there is a potential influencer, if you will, of your mind, your thought, and your belief, there's not a lot you can do about it per se. But once you become aware, and like I say, we're going to take some time and we're going to get into this because it's an important concept. We are subject to influence through our subjective, our subconscious mind by this thing called race consciousness, or like I say, what Jung called the collective unconscious. And imagine, if you will, not only when we look around, all around us, we understand that there's more there than just air. There's energy and there's all sorts of stuff, including what Holmes considered to be race consciousness. And it's kind of a repository for all thought. You know, thoughts are things. Thoughts don't end. When we think a thought, it doesn't end at the external portion of our head or our skull. Our thoughts go out, if you will, into the repository of thoughts, this thing called the race consciousness. Now, in that, for people that are sensitive to certain types of thoughts, they are much easier influenced by race consciousness. Also, one of the things that Dr. Holmes talked about is when a child is first born into the world, they are subject to race consciousness in general, but if you can imagine like a family race consciousness, a consciousness of those, the thought energy of those that are around during the pregnancy and the birth and the early weeks and months of a child's life. Now, I know that within modern medicine today, one of the things that they put a lot of emphasis on when dealing with young mothers that are, or mothers-to-be that are pregnant, is that growing baby within themselves is very sensitive to to their own emotional moods and stuff, but they're also sensitive to those things that are going on in the world around them that they can perceive on some level. Race consciousness is part of that. When there's a lot of chaos going on in the world, and if you happen to be if your consciousness is not real positive, you're a little more negative personal consciousness, you'll pick up, you'll be a little more sensitive to that. If you happen to be more of an upbeat person, that may not affect you, but you could still be affected on some level if you're not aware that it's there. As we begin to walk our spiritual journey, if you will, as we come into New Thought, religious science, science of mind and spirit, and we say, okay, I'm going to begin to take charge, if you will, of my day-to-day life experience, and I'm moving forward with that. There's a lot of work ahead, if you will. We have to, like I say, there is a price that has to be paid, but the value is unlimited once we realize that. And the price that is demanded of us is to, one, become aware of our limiting beliefs and seek to eliminate them. Become aware of our negative, limited ways of thinking and replace that with what Holmes called right thinking, and become aware of those times and places where we may find ourselves influenced by things outside of us that are not necessarily life-affirming or affirming for our life experience. And taking that time each day, to kind of clear the mind, if you will, speak our word, speak our affirmations, and take responsibility for where we're at right here, right now. And when I say take responsibility, I'm not talking about like self-blame. That's not what I'm talking about. We stumble, we fall. But you did that when you were learning to walk. You still got up and you learned to walk, didn't you? You may stumble as you seek to start this spiritual path. There are a lot of things that you're going to have to learn, just like when you were learning to walk, like the biomechanics of taking steps and balance and forward motion and how to run and so on. And as we work our spiritual path, we walk our spiritual path, those are things that, in a sense, we're going to learn. We're going to take time every day. We're going to make ourselves important enough to take that time every day. We're going to look discordant facts in the face and see the truth behind them. We're going to affirm our good. We're going to realize and recognize our space, our place within the greater divine creation of all that is, and that we are one with, not one apart from, not one separate from, but one as a part of the greater complexity of the unity, the oneness of all that is. We're not separate. And as we look out into the world, we don't see separate beings. We see all parts of the divine expressing as the various parts. And when they're expressing in ways that maybe we find abrasive, we may put up boundaries, but we still love them. We align ourselves, and this is important, we begin to align ourselves with principle. We make that kind of our first calling each and every day, that not only do we claim the day, claim our good, but we claim love for our day, love in all things. We recall on a regular basis until it becomes just a natural part of our thought processes that Jesus said that we are to love God with all that we are. I'm paraphrasing. And that we love our neighbors. And he wasn't talking about the people that live next door. He was talking about all people. We love our neighbors as we love ourselves. That's a love that knows no judgment, a love that knows no limitation. Now, again, it may be a love that we may have to put a boundary up. There are some people that are so broken that, they can be hard to be around, but they're still God expressing. And maybe as we grow, as our light shines brighter, as we realize, accept, and demonstrate a greater good in our life, that will express in their lives too, because race consciousness is not necessarily just a negative influence within our lives. It can also be a positive influence, and we can be, if you will, a positive feed into it. And think about how important that is as we look out into the world today, how great it would be if people stopped and paused and reflected love into the consciousness of humanity. You know, forget who's what side, where, whatever. Just reflected love. We can all be part of that. That is the greater expression for which we were all created. That's our ultimate purpose. And it's my belief at some point in time, and I believe that that's what Dr. Holmes also taught, that at some point in time, we're going to reach that level. And we don't reach that level by having others do it for us. We reach that level by doing it for ourselves. Anyway, this is kind of a stream of consciousness today about the power of thought, some ideas that I've been kicking around. I wanted to share it. I hope you've enjoyed it. You can always go to New Thought Talk with Rev Steve, and you'll find a lot of our videos there, or we have a YouTube page. I believe it's Madera SAC1, something like that. Mike, I believe, has it on the screen, where you can go to the YouTube, and we got a few. I think there's like 170 of them there. It's amazing what happens. But you can always reach me via email at maderasac@gmail.com. And I love hearing from you. I love answering questions. And I love being able to present these ideas. So hopefully you'll be back next week or the week after or sometime in between, whenever it works for you. As you go through the week, know that the light of God surrounds you, the love of God enfolds you, the power of God protects you, and the presence of God watches over you. Wherever you are, God is there, no doubt about it, and all is well. Have a great week, my friends. I'll see you next time. Hi, I'm the host of New Thought Talk, Reverend Steve Walling, and I want to take a moment today and give you an opportunity to support our ministry, support our show. You can do that through a PayPal payment. You send the payment through PayPal to the email address of Madera, MADERASAC @gmail.com. If you don't have a PayPal account, you can go down below the link and you can find where you can enter a debit or credit card. I want to thank those that have supported us and those that will continue to support us. You have a great day. Bye.